Today, I'm talking about Desperado, a stylish action thriller released in 1995 and directed by Robert Rodriguez. Starring Antonio Banderas in one of his breakthrough Hollywood roles, the film combines explosive action, memorable characters, dark humor, and a distinctive visual style that helped define action cinema in the 1990s. Although often considered a sequel to Rodriguez's earlier film El Mariachi, Desperado works perfectly well as a standalone movie and is the second installment in what became known as the Mexico trilogy. Story summary. The movie opens with a mysterious man entering a bar and telling a story about a legendary gunslinger known only as El Mariachi. According to the story, El Mariachi travels through Mexico carrying a guitar case filled not with instruments, but with weapons. His reputation has grown so much that criminals and lawmen alike fear his arrival. The film then introduces the real El Mariachi, played by Antonio Banderas. Years earlier, El Mariachi was a musician who wanted nothing more than to play guitar and make a living performing songs. However, his life was destroyed when a powerful drug lord named Bucho and his men mistakenly targeted him. The violence led to the death of the woman he loved and transformed him from a musician into a deadly assassin seeking revenge. Now El Mariachi travels from town to town hunting down Bucho and everyone connected to him. As he enters a small Mexican town controlled by Bucho's criminal empire, he begins gathering information about the drug lord's whereabouts. Along the way, he attracts attention due to his mysterious appearance and deadly skills. During his search, El Mariachi meets Carolina, played by Salma Hayek. Carolina owns a bookstore and quickly becomes intrigued by the quiet stranger. Initially, she wants nothing to do with the violence surrounding him. However, as Bucho's men close in, she becomes drawn into El Mariachi's dangerous mission. The relationship between El Mariachi and Carolina provides the emotional core of the story. While surrounded by gunfights and chaos, they develop a genuine connection that gives El Mariachi something to fight for beyond revenge. As the story progresses, El Mariachi discovers the shocking truth about Bucho. The drug lord is not merely his enemy, he is actually connected to El Mariachi's own past in a deeply personal way. The revelation transforms the conflict from a simple revenge mission into a tragic confrontation involving family, betrayal, and lost opportunities. The final act erupts into a series of spectacular gun battles. El Mariachi and his allies take on wave after wave of Bucho's gunmen using pistols, shotguns, machine guns, and the film's most famous weapons, guns hidden inside guitar cases. The climactic showdown between El Mariachi and Bucho forces both men to confront the consequences of their choices and the violence that has defined their lives. By the end, revenge has been achieved, but at a tremendous cost. El Mariachi leaves town changed once again, carrying both the burden of his past and the hope of a new future. Review. One of the reasons Desperado remains so popular is its unique blend of action and style. Rather than aiming for realism, the movie embraces a comic book approach to violence. Gunfights are exaggerated, characters perform impossible stunts, and action scenes are choreographed more like dance sequences than realistic combat. Antonio Banderas delivers a charismatic performance as El Mariachi. He says relatively little compared to many action heroes, but his presence, confidence, and intensity make him a compelling protagonist. The film also helped introduce many international audiences to Salma Hayek, whose performance as Carolina adds warmth and emotional depth to the story. Director Robert Rodriguez brings enormous energy to every scene. Fast camera movements, creative editing, dramatic lighting, and inventive action sequences give the film a distinctive personality that separates it from standard action movies. The soundtrack is another highlight. The music combines rock, Latin influences, and traditional Mexican sounds, perfectly matching the atmosphere of the film. One of the movie's greatest strengths is that it never takes itself too seriously. While there are moments of genuine drama, there is also plenty of humor and self-awareness. The film understands that audiences are there to enjoy the ride. However, some viewers criticize the movie for having a relatively simple plot. The story mainly serves as a framework connecting one action sequence to another. Those looking for deep character studies or complex storytelling may find it somewhat shallow. Still, for fans of action cinema, the film delivers exactly what it promises: excitement, style, and entertainment. Themes. Revenge. The central theme of the film is revenge. El Mariachi's quest is driven by the pain of losing the woman he loved and the life he once had. Identity. Throughout the movie, El Mariachi struggles with the contrast between who he used to be and who he has become. He was once a musician, but violence has transformed him into a killer. Violence and consequences. Although the action is stylized, the film repeatedly shows how violence destroys lives and relationships. Redemption. Through Carolina, El Mariachi begins to see the possibility of a future beyond revenge and bloodshed. Interesting facts. The movie is a sequel to an extremely low-budget film. Desperado follows El Mariachi, which Robert Rodriguez famously made for only about $7,000. The success of that film helped launch his career in Hollywood. Antonio Banderas learned English for Hollywood. Before becoming a major Hollywood star, Antonio Banderas spoke very little English. Desperado became one of the films that established him as an international leading man. Salma Hayek nearly missed the role. Robert Rodriguez fought hard to cast Salma Hayek because some studio executives were initially hesitant. Her performance ultimately became one of the movie's highlights. The guitar cases became iconic. The weapon-filled guitar cases are among the most recognizable props in action movie history and became a defining symbol of the franchise. A famous cameo appears early in the film. Steve Buscemi appears near the beginning of the movie, delivering the entertaining story that helps establish El Mariachi's legendary reputation. Quentin Tarantino appears in the film. Quentin Tarantino has a memorable cameo appearance and shares one of the film's most unusual and humorous conversations. It inspired many later action films. The movie's stylish gunplay, slow-motion action, and charismatic anti-hero influenced numerous action films released during the late 1990s and early 2000s. It completed a larger story. The character's story would later continue in Once Upon a Time in Mexico, which completed Robert Rodriguez's Mexico trilogy. Legacy. Today, Desperado is considered a cult classic and one of the defining action films of the 1990s. It helped establish Antonio Banderas as an international movie star, elevated Salma Hayek's profile, and cemented Robert Rodriguez's reputation as one of Hollywood's most creative action directors. The film's combination of stylish action, memorable visuals, humor, music, and charisma continues to attract new audiences decades after its release. Conclusion: Desperado is more than just a revenge thriller. It is a stylish action fantasy about loss, identity, and redemption wrapped inside some of the most entertaining gunfights ever put on screen. With Antonio Banderas delivering a star-making performance, Salma Hayek providing emotional depth, and Robert Rodriguez directing with relentless energy, the film remains one of the standout action movies of the 1990s. Desperado proves that sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the gun hidden inside the guitar case, it's the pain carried by the man holding it.